Hello, it's David Fisher here from Business Exit's Secret Formula. If you're a business owner, buyer, advisor who wants to build a sellable, scalable business to become exit ready, you're in the right place today. In this show, we're going to go behind the scenes from founders, buyers, advisors, everyone. This is real people in the real world of what they do, how they build businesses, create systems, people that assist people in that journey as well. And today we've got someone who has very much assisted people, Glenis Gassmann. She hasn't just studied, she did go off to uni, but she hasn't just studied business, she's actually lived it for 35 years. From accountant to empowering business owners worldwide, turning intention into momentum as an author, a speaker, a business coach, and a mentor. So there's a big journey, and welcome to Glenis. And let's start with your journey. So just there where we went from accountant to empowering business owners worldwide, that's a big step. Tell us about how you started on that journey and where you turned up today. That would be really exciting for our audience, our business owners.
Firstly, thanks, David. Thanks for inviting me onto your show. It's a pleasure to be here. As you were going through that, I was going, wow, yeah, that's where I started. And it took me back to, I was driving up from the Gold Coast to Brisbane. We'd just landed on the Gold Coast in Brisbane, 1989. And I was basically saying I'm going to have my own business. Didn't know what then, but at that time I did. But it took to 1993, 94 it was actually, before I started my own consulting business. And that was due to my boss, who was an accountant. I worked in an accounting firm, and he actually, there was no internet then, David. Can you imagine a business? How would we communicate? No internet, nothing, right? And I was going up to this accounting office, and my daughter got chickenpox. She was 5, hadn't quite started school, and I had no one here to look after her. All my family were back in New Zealand. I wanted to take 2 weeks off, and he really made it very difficult for me. I did, and in that time I thought, right, it's time for me to actually start the business. And so I was nearly finished my degree, my accounting degree at that stage. So I was the first MYB certified consultant here in Queensland, and in 94, and 95 I actually was a CPA accountant. I finished my degree and became a CPA. So what I did as my consulting business was I actually took business owners on a journey from paper to electronic records. And so I introduced MYOB to them, and I always seem to find myself in an educational, empowering situation where I'm actually taking people into, like I'm teaching them so that they are learning from me. And so, I almost make myself redundant in that journey. And I still had another couple of years to do my practicing certificate as an accountant before you can start up your own practice. And so I didn't start my own practice till 98. And that practice, my accounting practice, that actually was just an accumulation of all the MYOB clients that I had who were small business owners around the Logan area of the Logan City and all that area around Brisbane. And so they all came on board as clients. So I had an instant made accounting practice, and within 12 months I had to put staff on. And so within about 5 years I was up to 10 staff, and I was operating out of Springwood. There was a business there we had our business name called GM Accounting. And I had actually dug myself into a hole. It was one of the first lessons that I learned in business, and one of the things that I actually talk about in my new book, which we'll get to later. That was, I seemed to be working 10, 12-hour days. I was burnt out. I was paying staff more than what I was paying myself. The story goes on. created my business, and so it was 2006, 2007 actually, I got this invite to go along to the Sellable, which was for a whole group of accountants going along there. And there was a speaker who was a business coach for accountants, and could invite 3 other of your high performing team to go along there with you. So there's 4 of us rocked up there, and within by lunchtime I had actually signed up to be in his coaching group. And that was the start of me transitioning from actually accountant into coaching, because one of the things that not only was I bogged down with work and busy work and not delegating properly and at that point of time, I was also sick of just number crunching, because GST had come in. No, GST hadn't come in at that stage, and so people were bringing all their paper records or their books to me for 5 years. They hadn't done their work for 5 years, so we were just seen as like a glorified tax collector maybe, and just someone to produce financial statements in case they were getting a loan or something like that. They weren't seen as a proactive source to actually, let's have a look at where your business is at and can we help you. So that wasn't really rewarding for someone like me, because my whole way of being is I have to help people. I better myself. So I'm actually empowering and educating others. What happened then was I was looking for a coach to be. So what happened was I got coached. Then I loved that experience of a coaching group. So by 2008, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start my own coaching group up. And so I did that, but I was looking for a coach to head it up, because I didn't think in a million years that I could be a coach. And I was an accountant and an advisor, but I couldn't find a coach that had done this sort of work with small businesses then. So I put on another accountant to look after all the accounting side. So another partner. So I put on a partner in 2008 in my accounting firm, and he brought out 50%. Then I created the coaching groups. And so I won the Innovation Award 2009 from the Queensland Government Innovation Award. For the innovative of putting the coaching group in behind my accounting firm. And so I became the coach. So I literally at that time felt the molecules shifting from one side of my brain to the other, because as an accountant, you provide solutions. If someone comes to you, I've got a capital gains tax problem. Okay, great. Well, let's have a look. Let's find out what it is and let's provide you a solution. But when you're a coach, you don't do that. You don't provide solutions. You can show strategies that would work in a business, but you're actually asking more questions, and the person that you're coaching is actually doing some self-reflective, and they're actually getting the results themselves and the transformation, because they actually see it themselves. So I had to shift from like telling people solutions to zipping my mouth and not actually giving solutions and asking questions, and that took a bit. But I was running what I call business edge groups in Logan. We ran them at the Brisbane Technology Park for a long time. They were free workshops all around, and we had up to 150 businesses there sometimes. We had guest speakers there. We ran them through what potentially they're not doing in their business, and if they wanted a solution to that, we could help them, and they joined a coaching group. So by the time 2011 came, coaching groups were up around about 3 with 8 people in them. So at that stage, I was coaching 24 small businesses around the Logan area. This was through a franchise type operation of the business coach that I had. He put together all the materials, did all the marketing. All we had to do was facilitate it. And they went down in the GFC, and they took all our money with them. So there was 85 business coaches across Australia and New Zealand who actually had invested in this venture, And then people were losing somewhere from 500,000 up to 3.5 million, accountants who had invested in this. So in 2011, at the beginning of 2011, I found myself like going, oh my God, I've wasted. I've got a partner in my accounting firm. I own 50% of it. I've invested the other half. That's now gone down the drain. But I've got knowledge. I can now coach businesses. So I turned my model into a one-on-one model, and rather than group coaching. And so I had instantly something like about 16 clients at that stage, and that transitioned. Most of my clients are with me for 3 years or more, and then I transitioned into online in 2016. I realized that I didn't want to travel out to places or people to come to me. I actually wanted to do all this online, and I wanted to start the marketing and started to expand out, not just around Brisbane and Logan. I wanted to actually do Australia, the world. And so in 2016 I did that with the help of another coaching group that came from the US, and so we padded out my whole back end, and we offered, there was funnels, there was lots of things, and so I did that for a couple of years. 2018, the CEO of that company in the States, they said to me in 2016, you're a bit of a natural to be coaching business coaches, Glenis, and I said, really? So I was over there speaking at all their conferences. In fact, it was this time 10 years ago that I actually did my first international speaking gig in the Dominican Republic in Punta Cana, and to 300 business coaches. Then I brought some licenses from this particular company, and I've been bringing on coaches, providing with the whole back end facility, so they can concentrate on what they're really good at, and that's talking to people and actually helping them get results in their business. So they don't need that whole back end marketing funnel. And what's the next milestone? Probably about a year ago, I had to have a hip operation, and so I was convalescing, and it was 3 weeks in to my convalescing, and I started taking calls from my clients, and one of them in particular, who I had we'd set a reasonable set of actions to take for 3 weeks while I was off. He came to the call, and I just had to listen to his reasons, stories, and excuses of why he hadn't done all this stuff. I was like fed up. I was like, you know what? I have got to get my message of why knowing isn't enough, which is the title of my book. And you've got to get into action, and understanding what stops people from getting into action to achieve everything they've ever wanted in their business. So I had the title for the book, I had the chapters, I had everything. I just wrote for 3 months, and then I started self-publishing in June. And now it's #1 bestseller here in Australia. It's just coming out on Audible as we speak. We've got it out on Spotify and a few others as well. So it's been about a year since in the making of the book, and that's where I am now. It's like yes, I have clients that have been with me now for 10 years. I have coaches that I mentor and provide a whole back end, facilitation for them, so that they can just get out there and help businesses, and keeping it simple. I like to keep everything quite simple and just focus on the client and what their needs are. But if you had have said to me back in 2008, maybe, probably in 2008, that I'd be, an international best-selling author and of coaches and stuff, I would have looked at you and thought, really? Like, who do you see in me, So there's my journey, and it's been really rewarding. But I feel like I have to act on things. Like when when things aren't working for you, and I knew that was the step moving from accountant to coach. I just like, it was great. Become a CPA and a chartered accountant, done all the learning, done everything, but you know what? It just wasn't fulfilling for me because I wasn't actually seeing results in the clients that I was working for.
Wow, that's a journey. So on that journey, the part that I really like is that you thought, how could I be a coach? How could I be a writer? How could I be a speaker? How you've got international best-selling and Australian book. You've got small business awards. There's a lot of different things. So for our listeners, you could say to them anything is possible if you believe in yourself that you could do it. Would that be, how could you elaborate a little bit more? Because there's a lot of steps that you've done along the road. So for a lot of people that are probably listening, they're going, oh, that's fine for Glenis. She could do it. But you're just like all of us, aren't you? That are just, let's go from one step to the other. What would be a good step for people to start?
It's so good. It's so good. Great question. Look, firstly, definitely you got to believe that you can do it. Like, that's number one. You actually have to have this purpose. Like, you have to have a purpose. Like, you know, you've read the book Start With Why with Simon Sinek. There's got to be a purpose outside of you. It's got to be bigger than you that's going to pull you out of bed on those cold winter mornings. You know, we don't get many of them here in Brisbane, but I know people are listening everywhere, and there will be some level of coldness that you just don't want to get out of bed. You're going to have a purpose bigger than yourself. Like, it's not money, because money is a result of what you do and what you love doing. So firstly, this purpose got to be bigger. So you got to really do the thinking and work out who it is that you want to help and why. And what is it about those people that irks you so much that sort of like puts a knot in your stomach that you have to do that. So that's number one. You got to believe it's possible. Like, that comes from self-belief in yourself. So there's some personal development maybe that you may have to have a look at. If you're not believing in yourself, then nothing, no matter how many actions you take, not going to work, right? And the next thing is that you've really got to balance out gaining knowledge with taking action. So many business owners, they and I see it every time in high performing business owners I meet, they are abundant of information. You know, they'll, like, you know, they've got strategies, they've got blueprints, they listen to podcasts, which is great, they do that. They've got so many how-to guides and different things that you can easily get from the internet. Most people I meet are really simply brilliant at what they do. They know what to do, and they're capable and they're knowledgeable, but they get blocked by overwhelm, and they get caught in the cycle of, like I call over planning, researching, getting ready. Oh, I just will do that when I have, just when I have this little bit more research. I've just got to do this. I've just got to do that, And those are activities that sort of in the background. You've got to balance this out with actually taking action, and that's what's going to actually pull you forward, because it's this action taking on a consistent basis. It's like money today is better in your pocket today than what it is tomorrow, right? And if you invested $1 and if it doubled every day for the next 30 days, the sums, you've got 6 million, right? It's a little bit like it's the compounding effect of consistency of actions. Absolutely the same as money. You have to consistently take the actions every day you go to work that are in line with achieving your goal, not doing the research, not doing all of that. That's sort of like second. Most people have it the other way around. They're too scared. They do everything. They getting ready, but they never launch. It's like failure to launch, And then, or if they do, they've missed the boat. Someone else has done it for them. And you often see that. And then they're a little bit disheartened, and this business didn't work for me, or this business idea didn't work for me, All you got to do is start sharing and getting getting to talk with like-minded people who see what's possible with you, and they will help you, and you start taking actions. And that's really what all it comes down to.
I think a lot of, as you were covering, you were saying a lot of people are very overwhelmed. And obviously what we do in our business is it's all about just getting exit ready. That starts with the first step. It's all about getting the owner. So we are business brokers. We can sell businesses, but we actually start exactly like what you're doing. You believe it's possible, your purpose bigger than yourself, the actions you must take. But in the exit ready process, it's about getting the owner ready before the business.
Yes.
And a lot of that, what we find on that journey is that to be exit ready, as in the owner, they've actually stepped into the first step of preparing mentally, because like you were saying, in that belief, you have to believe in yourself, because when you leave your business, then you've got an identity problem.
Yeah.
So even when you would have changed from being an accountant to when you said, oh, how can I be a coach? I'm going to join these other groups. And then before you know it, you're coaching the coaches. So there's that transition. So I'd like to go a little bit more on that transitional part, because that's a big step. That's a big hurdle. We find most people get stalled. Like I say, they don't take action. That's a big part of that. But it's really starting on those small steps. What sort of advice, because obviously you empower people and we all do that as well, but you've actually written that's why knowing isn't enough. Is a great title. That's just to the point where it's no fluff guide to building a business that finally turns action into profit. And so what we're doing, we like to take actions into the next chapter of your life as well. How can you elaborate on some of that?
Yeah, I feel that there's this internal and an external thing that's got to go on with business owners. Like the internal side of things is what you were talking about, getting the owners ready, like we need that internal like going, and mostly like in a business owner point of view, they've got to believe in themselves. A lot of business owners don't have someone to share ideas with or to actually say what's going on. They've got no one to dump their brain at the end of the week. And so what I find, to help people do that is you need a coach or a mentor. Like you need to have someone that's on your side that's going to champion you to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Because even myself, like, I went on, I was in my accounting practice for 7 years, right? 7 years of pushing and 8 to 10 hour days and, paying me less than what my staff were paying and like, didn't have the leadership skills in, that sort of thing. When I employed a coach who actually had me drop my productivity from 70% to 30%, right? And in 12 months, I had this coach and the group of coaching that I was in, of the other accountants, I had them empowering me along. And at the end of the 12-month mark, I actually won 3 out of the 5 top business awards in that coaching group. And here's the little sole trader from Springwood by herself, up against all these big accounting firms with 5 or 6 partners, and people were going, who is that woman, But my debtor days, my work in progress days, everything was all within guidelines. Like I operated a tight ship. I was balanced. I got it balanced, but I didn't do that by myself. All right. I actually had somebody believe in me to empower me to keep taking the actions. And I find that is actually what's missing for a lot of business owners, is that either they may have been burnt before with business coaches who never got results for them. But look, to be fair, I think there's 50-50 the other way. There's a lot of clients, that don't take the actions. They think the coach is going to do it for them, and that's not the case. So I actually feel that you want to get to somewhere and you want to transition into something, you got to have a coach that firstly believes in you. You've got to be able to have that outside person. And that was when the trajectory of my career absolutely took off, from 2008 up to 2016 when I went online and international speaker and that was 8 years. That's only 1 year extra than running my practice for 7 years, where I was like bogged down and busy work cycle and So, once you actually have the right coach or someone to actually empower you to achieve all the goals that you want to achieve, and they, I'm not talking about cracking the whip and holding you accountable in a bad way. It's like really empowering you to achieve all the goals in alignment with your purpose. So I actually feel that is what causes a transformation and your trajectory to go on a really steep level. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've got a coach, RPM, which is part of the Tony Robbins group, Pathways to Power, they call it. It's the same thing. You get to a point with an idea or a solution where, when you go back to the word of overwhelm, sometimes you get involved in too many things. A lot of that, because obviously with Tony's, is very much about that getting in the right state and mindset.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're taking our owners. I'm always getting coached to then pass on my skills and wisdom and knowledge from those coaches as well. That's sharpening the axe type of situation, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it is so important, and it's the little things. I would just really encourage our listeners, because there's a whole range of different coaches, right? So if you're looking at fitness, we're obviously going to go to a fitness coach, right? In your business, but even in your ideas where you're getting a bit stuck, or you're at that stage where you're growing, there's different coaches with different roles, and sometimes a coach can get you so far and then you need to pass it on to someone else. And on that journey, we have to identify that a little bit, isn't it? So you would have seen through your career of coaching those different steps, obviously with the different groups that you could pass on to different people. You got different niches as well. And obviously my background's in construction, 45 years of that, so I work a lot in that space as well. So we understand that journey. So that's probably, in the world of construction, I'm kind of more like, as you were saying in the introduction, as a mentor, because you've been there, you've done that. So, and when you elaborated on good questions, I remember talking to a very high profile coach, they said, and I said to the question, what's the difference between an average coach and a good coach? They said they ask better questions. That was their line. I thought, wow, it's as simple as that, but it's not as simple as that, is it? Because it takes a lot to find those right questions, but you have to listen and not talk.
Yeah, and you've got to understand who you're talking to at that time as well, and you're never going to understand anyone who you're talking to unless you actually let them talk first. And ask them the right questions, and actually, don't be too scared to sort of get to the meaty part really, and ask them what do they really want and why do they want it, and getting the emotional side out, because if you're not, it's superficial, and they won't take the actions because they're not really they're not aligned. They haven't really got that. Like I remember bringing on a client, and he had 3 teenage daughters. They were all going out. They knew he had to pay for their weddings, and weddings were big things, He goes, I need this business to make $150,000 profit this year because I need to invest it. He said, because I need to have this money aside for these girls' weddings. That really got his gut going, you know what I mean? That had to happen. So he was fully invested in that. And you're right about saying no. I just mentioned, you said saying no before. Saying no to distractions is something I go into in the book. Warren Buffett said no most of the time, right? And you find that there's opportunities come along, and we get hoodwinked, I call it, with all these bright, shiny objects coming at us. Oh, let's do this, let's do that, But, I have a word called lasercution. And lasercution is the discipline of narrowing your focus to the very few priorities that actually matter and executing on what you want to have happen. When it comes to exiting a business and and things like that. That execution is the bridge between knowing to doing. All right, because when you come to exit a business, you know your business, but we want to really narrow that down to what are those top priorities we've got to concentrate on to actually get to that point where you're exiting the business. And a lot of businesses go unsold or don't sell for the right amount of money that they should sell for, and that's only because they actually haven't had some probably 18 months worth of coaching to boost up their profits and the gross profit and whatever it is like they need to actually start showing really good numbers, because numbers is the language of business. And I'm lucky that I have that accounting background. It's just like you have niches in construction and things like, and my niches are really into service-based businesses. But I like when I was an accountant, I was actually doing financial statements and managing large construction companies, right? So I understand all about retentions and the margins that you need in construction. I also do that in manufacturing, retail. I had the scope of business that I had was all everywhere, and in the accounting world, there's business inputs and there's business outputs, right? And it's what you do in the middle that makes the profits. So when it comes to coaching businesses, I think we coach the business owner. For me, I'm coaching the business owner and their self-beliefs and what they want to have happen and keeping them consistently taking actions. But I'm very lucky that I do understand the numbers associated with the business, and we look at those as evidence of what the actual coaching is producing. So there are some coaches out there that don't have those numbers, that don't have number experience like that, and they may mentor businesses that are actually something that they've done, like you just said, a fitness coach or something like that. I have a coach that I'm mentoring over in the States, and she just works on home services. She does home services. I have another coach who looks after tech. I have another coach in South Africa, and she's into retail. Coffee shops is her thing. So you know what I mean? So, right, and saying there's heaps of coaches out there. You got to do a bit of research and find out, what they're really good at. And then you also have coaches like myself who are well-rounded, who are the back end is accounting, who actually understand the numbers. Because it's all about the numbers, Yeah.
The numbers are a big thing, and obviously in the accounting side, you've got numbers for the tax purposes, so you're trying to reduce those numbers, while it comes to the multiple side where you're trying to increase those numbers. So what a lot of people have to really understand is that on all of a rearrangement of numbers, it's not cooking the books, it's realigning it. So a lot of people say, I'm making X amount. I said, have you paid yourself the going rate? They said, no, I just paid myself 50,000. I said, so someone doing your role would be like 150 or something? They said, yeah, of course. So before you know it, there's 100,000, and they might have made, for example, 150,000 in their mind profit, but in real terms, it's only 50,000.
Yeah.
And a lot of that side of things have to be realigned. Can you explain that to some of our listeners where they think, this is my numbers, this is just what the accountants told me, but really they've got two hats. Well, a lot of them may only use one hat, but in your case, because you've been on both sides, you've got to explain those two hats of numbers.
Yeah, good question. I think, look, I'd much rather make profits of $1 million and pay 300,000 in tax, right? And dividends, and then get that back over time, through a company, than, pay little tax. I mean, look, it's a fact of life. We've got to pay tax. We live in a country where we have to pay tax, so there's no point in not paying tax, right? So I put all that aside. I go, let's make what you want, and then let's effectively manage your profits properly. So, you can effectively manage your profits. You could be in not in the right structure that you need. So, what I do when I'm talking with business, clients that come on, I get to know their accountant. And, I talk to the accountant about their structure. I don't do any of that work. I just want to see good financial statements at the end of every month. So I know. And also, I like to see like the activity, like how many leads came in, how many converted, what are the sales, what was your margins on the last 5, margins over that month or on your last 5 jobs. You'd be surprised. People don't know what their margins were on their last five jobs, and they don't realize why their gross profit at the end of the year is reduced down because of that, because they're not keeping track on these things. So I ask the questions so they become aware. But when it comes to the accountant, I say, make as much money as you can if that's what you want. And then we'll talk to your accountant and we'll make sure that you're optimizing this profit effectively across whatever we can do so that you're paying the optimal amount of tax across your family and across everything. Yeah.
So there's a lot more in it, isn't it? Because so many people just, I don't want to pay tax. But then if you're not paying tax and you're not making money, so then when it comes to sell your business, you're not making any money. So of course you can't sell it.
It's not sellable.
And so last year, talking about stats, last year only in Australia, only 14% of businesses that were listed sold.
Wow.
Normally the American stats, which we're sort of under that, is around about 20%. That's about all there is. It is a massive gap between what I would say a sellable business. If you look at those stats, on average, 80% are not sellable.
Yeah.
But they've got a job, and like they say, you're doing all of these 50 or 12 hours a day or whatever, and you're getting paid less than what your staff are. And when you walk out the door, obviously you did get a partner, but if you walked out the door, then you had no business, even though you had all those people working for you. So this is what people have to realise, that we actually have a test. We say to people, could you go off on holiday or go for an adventure overseas or whatever you like for, say, 6 months? And 99% of people said, of course not, they'd be stupid. Then you peel it back to, if you can't do 6 months, you must be able to do 6 weeks. And they still say, no, there's no way I can do that. So as you're peeling that back, so a lot of people say, I could go away for a week or two over the Christmas period or something like that when it all shuts down. But it's so dependent on the business owner that those ones don't have a business, do they?
That's right. Absolutely true. And, I sold my accounting practice. I brokered myself and I sold into a firm in the city, 3-partner firm that did financial planning. So it was great for my clients because I transitioned them over to that firm, and then I stayed with that firm for 6 months and helped them through. So I actually sold my practice, which was really great. But it's a stressful time, and you never get what you want for it because people are always, biting down. So you've got to have good numbers. You've got to have everything ticking along. And, this has got to happen probably for 3 years before you actually want to sell. You've got to be building, and there's no point in building a business and being in a business for 20, 30 years, whatever, in the construction world. If you're not paying yourself the right salary and you're not contributing to your super, because if you don't sell your business, you got nothing to put into your super. By the way, most small businesses, when you sell, are tax-free. There's conditions around that, right? But you want to have your superannuation, be able to cover your retirement and things like that, because in Australia they keep putting up that retirement age, don't they? So it's so important that if you are in a business right now and you think, 5 to 10 years time, you want to sell, then, the reality check is you probably should talk to David now and just go, what's it worth now? And then what do you want it to be in 5, 10 years time? And then map out a plan on how to get there. And I can tell you now, your first thing would be you need a coach who can help you get there. Yeah.
And when the other part is you emphasise it was a very stressful time when you broke it, you sold it, and went through that. And that would be financially, emotionally, all of that part of it, isn't it? Honestly, I think a lot of people, that's why we go back to the concept of getting exit-ready owners before we even start the process. Because a lot of them, like we had one person, he had a $15 million contract sitting in front of him. And he looked at it and he said to me, if I sign this, when I drive out the gate for the last time, do I turn left or right or to go straight ahead? Well, I didn't have that answer because at that time we weren't preparing, we were preparing the businesses. So we learned that it stalled at that point. So he didn't sign it. And so we had to go on a discovery of what's he going to do, and then he got back online and he did actually sell it. But that held up the whole process of the sale. In a lot of situations, the emphasis, like I keep saying to people, is to get ready on that journey. As a coach like yourself, it doesn't happen in 5 minutes, does it? People get to the point, absolutely. They turn up and they say, hey, I want to sell tomorrow. It's like, no. The sell tomorrow is like, on a very good day, if you're in one of the 20%ers, you might do that in a year's time. But on the most people, that's more like 5 years to get to that journey. And then that's quite a stressful time, because while you're preparing, you're taking a hand off the wheel as such to do that. But if you've got a coach that understands this process, like yourself, then you can actually go on that journey with someone holding your hand to get you over the line, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're not in this category of business brokers, but I've talked to a few business brokers over the years, and the question I've asked them is, how many people have you sent away because you've told them that their business isn't sellable? And they go 7 out of 10. And I go, yeah, so how would you like to earn some money if you did a joint venture alliance with me, and you send those people to me and I'll show them a plan on how we can actually make that business sellable? And they go, no thanks.
Yeah. No.
All right, so sometimes business brokers, not you, David, but there's some out there that just don't want to help you help you get to the point where it's sellable. And you may as well, because this is your biggest business asset. So probably your biggest asset that you've got is your business. And there will be people who want to buy. There will be people out there who are looking to buy a business because, they just don't want to be tied to the 9 to 5 grind of not being their own boss and having to be somewhere at the same, they want the flexibility. They want freedom. So people do want to buy good businesses. So you may, I just think it's just unheard of. If you're going to set up a business, always start with exit in mind, So always go, right, I'm setting up this business. I'm going to sell it in 20 years' time. Okay, what do I want to sell it for? Da-da-da-da-da. Let's go from there. Yeah.
Oh, totally. And I have to give a little secret in the business broking world that they're only actually looking for the 10%. Because there's only 10% of businesses that are ready to sell, and because it's a commission-based world solely, and then they look at it, this is a little bit more secrets, that obviously they're going to go through big numbers even within that 10%. So they really don't want to be part of that, because they're just scooping through that 10%, flicking them through, and so they're just thinking straight commissions. Look, that's not a bad thing, but that's why you have to find the right business broker. That's a lot like what we do. We coach people. We align ourselves with the likes of Glenis as well. All of these people, so then we can change those numbers. Yeah. But they're dreadful numbers. Like that's the why. When you're going about what's your why, like can you imagine if houses, if 85% of houses didn't sell last year? That no one would accept that, but we seem to accept this. Yeah. And you're so right. So business owners are by themselves, and they need to reach out. It is a lonely world. We all know that, because we're doing our own thing, and you've got your competitors, so you don't want to talk to them. And this is where we have to get that, I said, that ostrich, get the head out of the sand type situation. Put your hand up and say, look, I need some help.
Yeah. And you're right. And people don't think about it. Like when you've got the young plumber that sets up a business when he's 25 or 28, the last thing he's thinking about is selling it, when he's 60 or 55. He doesn't want to dig trenches anymore. He's in there and wants to make as much money as he can right now, So there are stages of businesses, you've got it's a bit like kids, you've got your infant stage, you've got your teenage stage, and then you've got your mature stage. But, I always say, you've got to check in on your business every year, and you've got to say, what do I want for the next 5 years? And you got to keep checking into this 5-year plan, the 5 to 10 year plan. And at some point, if you say, you know what, I'm not happy doing this anymore, I think I might sell it, or I might start getting it prepared to sell, you need to talk to people about what's possible for that, because you could be leaving money on the table, or you could be just not getting any money on the table, for all that hard work that you're putting in. Not only are you getting, you're getting paid per year, but, there's that equity you're building up in your brand, in your business, in your reputation, everything like that. And so, yes, there is definitely a need for businesses there's a need for something outside of accounting and something outside of selling a business, right? That bit in the middle to actually go, you know what, we're here right now and we want to move forward and we want to sell in 5 years' time. So what do we got to do? There actually needs to be something like that, like an association that helps people with that in the business. Yeah.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea. Because like I say, because our business is called Business Exit and Beyond.
Yes.
So the beyond part's another, but that'll be another journey on that one. But a lot of people aren't even thinking what they're going to do beyond business. Like the guy that, do I drive, turn left or right and go straight ahead out the gate? That's a very important part, because if you know where you're going, then you'll let go of some of that. So my first business I started actually a long, long time ago, 1987 as a builder, and never thought of it that way. In New Zealand, actually, we had 5 companies. I sold out of that, went to the accountant, needed the numbers and all that type of thing, the 2 or 3 multiples. So I learnt later on that I actually did a degree in valuation and property management, and I learnt later on that you can't get sued for undervaluation. So, of course, accountants keep it quite conservative. You can only get sued for overvaluation. So this is where you actually have to go to people to actually understand. It's quite a big journey to go through, and you can't. The journey is long because it's your life. Like you say, if you aren't paying yourself super, you're not paying for the future. There's nothing in that. You're not paying yourself enough. So sometimes a lot of people are better off actually working for someone else because they wanted the freedom, and that's what they wanted to get away from their boss. The worst boss is generally yourself, who's got the biggest stick and doesn't pay you.
Exactly. And they don't realise that. It's amazing. I've talked to a lot of people who said they want to start up a business, and I said, really, why? And it was all about money and opportunity, that sort of thing. There was nothing bigger than themselves, and they weren't going to pay themselves that much, and it was just ridiculous. The reason why I have advised people not to set up a business. I said, no, it's not. Don't bother. It's too hard. If you haven't got it set up right, if you haven't got a purpose high enough for yourself, if you're not going to, create profits so that you can actually pay yourself and for your future, then you're just going to you're digging yourself a hole. I just don't recommend that. I'm not going to advise on that. And the other point I just want to make too is about, like, there's some accountants that are so bogged down with just all the tax compliance and compliance work and looking at your financials and doing budgets and, doing, your ratios and things like that, which they think is business advice. And, it's not. It's historical, okay? If you want to sell your business or you want to get, your metrics in your business up high, you want to make more profits, you actually have to find someone who's outside the accounting world to actually help you do that. Because their level of business wise is they're so busy doing everything else and keeping track on tax and things, they actually I can't have conversations with accountants like I'm having with you, right? Because they don't think that way. They're very structured and producing financial statements, but financial statements aren't any good unless they were done yesterday for yesterday. Okay, so you do have to find somebody who's going to help you with your business and move it forward to whatever it is that you want, but you've got to find the right person to do that. Yeah.
Well, Glenis, so for our listeners, just to wrap up, let's just have, say, 4, because I think we can't fit it into 3.
Yeah.
4 nuggets that our listeners can sort of have a takeaway, and if you've got something a little bit special for them that we can actually put a link to one of your specialities of some sort, share that with us as well. That would be really great for our listeners to give them on something, and maybe something related to your book, but there's a lot of what we've covered. If you could just go through those, say, 4 nuggets.
4 nuggets. So what I want to give you as nuggets is like, stop overthinking and keep taking action, like lasercution. Remember the word lasercution, okay? That is going to get you further. It's going to make you more money in your business when you start taking action. Obviously, you're not going to take an action that's going to kill you. You're going to take calculated risks, okay? But you need to take action, all right? So doing is better than gathering information, all right? So you've got to have that. You must always, every year, look at your business in a way that is looking forward, not backwards. You're going to take the numbers and you're going to look forward, and you're going to go, where do I want to be in the next 5 years? Okay, and if you want to sell, you need to go talk to David and find out where you're at now and where you want to be, and then, David might call me in or whatever, and then we will help you get to where you want to get to. All right, so always, every year, look at your business and look at it going forward for the next 5 years. Say no to distractions. All right, so saying no is a good thing. All right, so just really focus on what you want to achieve every year. And I always say, light the path for others. So you've got a business and it's working great, and it's time to actually start shining the light. If you're a leader in your business, you start shining the light for others, because sometimes your business can sell to people who you're actually leading now. All right, and you may not actually have to go out and try and find someone brand new. So they're my 4 nuggets for people who are, in business right now. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Glenis. That last part, where shine a light. We've covered a lot of other things. That's been added into that. So, yes, I think a lot of people actually forget that. Internally, there's people there that could take your business over. So you don't actually have to go out to market. You don't have to pay the brokers. You don't have to go through that process. Obviously, you still need some guidance for values and transition process. So you definitely need coaches and people to help you on that. But if it's an attractive business, and someone might think, I like to take this over. They might be 30 years younger, or they might, even age doesn't matter. There might be someone that's 50 and think, I've always wanted to have a business. This is my opportunity. This might be their last opportunity. Let's take it. So I really, really like that part.
Yeah, because employees don't typically go to work just to annoy the boss. They actually want to go to work to contribute. And if you make it an environment where they're felt, acknowledged, they're contributing, and they're moving forward, then they'll stick with you for a long time, and they could potentially be, your exit strategy. So it's always good to shine the light and empower others and start making yourself redundant a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. A big thank you. Our sponsors are Business Exit and Beyond. We will have some in the show notes. Glenis has
So I was
got
just
a
going to
couple of-
say I do have a free chapter that I can give out for my book. So I'm going to give you the link. So the book is Why Knowing Isn't Enough there. And it's out on some Audible now. We've got it on ebook. We've got it on paperback. But I do have a link where you can get the first chapter free. I will give that to David. David will post that with this podcast. You're more than welcome to go in and check out the first chapter. You know, I think the Kindle version is less than $5. So, you know, it's not a big investment, but if you actually put it in place, you could be making millions with it.
Oh, 100%. So
Yeah.
I'll just finalise now that Glenis is the Why Knowing Isn't Enough, which is her book. So there's going to be a link to that. A big thank you to our sponsors, Business Exit and Beyond. So if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have this show. And for all of our listeners, there's so much there today that don't forget to subscribe. We're all part of YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon. Please subscribe, because then we know that we've got the support. A big thank you to all of our listeners, from David Fisher from Business Exit and Beyond, and our Business Exit Secret Formula podcast.